I'd like to talk about tonight things which are happening, which obviously in many ways it's quite astounding. Before I begin, let me just dedicate this shiur. This shiur should be a blessing and a merit for the health and success of the family of Regina Bas Yosef Reuven and Yeshaya ben Yisrael, Benjamin Wolf, Ben Tzvi Hirsch, Baruch ben Benjamin Wolf, and they shall have Hatzlacha and Yeshuas. Also, I want to dedicate the shiur to Refuah Shlema of Esther Libo Bas Chayo Yafa, and she should see a complete refuah. What has been happening lately is really in many ways astonishing. And that is that it's not only the events themselves, that have been happening in rapid succession, but each one is newsworthy, very important, and they're, really important, significant pieces of news. But they've been happening in tremendous acceleration, speed. So everybody's wondering what in the world is going on. I mean, in the last month, or in the last 6 months, we've never seen such a rapidity of events. And each one, like I said, is tremendously newsworthy. You see. So of course the question is what's happening, so on. So I'd like to talk about that, but remember one thing, which I really said, I think the last year, that there is a Zohar that talks about the fact that Tchias HaMesim, resurrection of the dead, which happens after the Mashiach ben David, the Davidic Messiah comes. That's when that happens, right? It's going to be happening 210 years before the end, which is 2240, and that means in 2030 we will witness the resurrection of the dead, which is astounding. That's only less than 6 years from now. So that would certainly make sense why things are happening in such rapid succession. So I'd like to offer an understanding of what all this means vis-a-vis the divine plan. And I'm going to include in that ideas which I have not said before, which are in many ways startling, to give some kind of, obviously, clarity in what's happening. So that's what I'd like to do tonight, and so on. I had mentioned something a while back, more than once probably, that there's a concept, and this, you need to understand this as an introduction to what is happening. I had mentioned that Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto brings down in his Sefer, his book Maimah HaGeula, a very interesting concept. That's the idea of the window shutting. What does that mean? That means that in order for this universe to exist, there has to be a certain amount of what's called shefa or hashpor, divine energy that comes down and creates the world and sustains it. And that is necessary from nanosecond to nanosecond. And if that would stop, or if that would completely be blocked, then the entire creation would completely evaporate. And what the Ramchal says is that light which comes down, imagine you're in a house and it's all dark and the window is black. You cannot see through the window. So obviously, whatever the window covers, you cannot see the light. And what will happen is, as time goes on, that window is going to begin to close more and more until the window will close to such an extent where it will only be a slight sliver or whatever in the amount of light coming in. That means 99% of the window is shut. That's how little divine energy will be coming through the world. And what that means, therefore, and that's the important idea, is therefore the amount of evil, the success of evil, will gradually increase as the amount of divine energy, right, is blocked. Because zeluma zeh, which means this is opposed to this. If the divine energy, the or, the light, is blocked, so in its place, in that vacuum, the evil grows, or the Satan grows in tremendous might. So this is what's going to happen until the end of time, right before Mashiach. So what that means is that there will be an incredible amount of evil in the world before the Messianic era, specifically the Mashiach ben Yosef will come. And what will happen is we're about to close, which, like I said, is the obliteration of the entire creation, basically. Right before that closes, okay, it will close. But as it's closing, that last nanometer, so to speak, a gate will open and will flood that house with ore from a different direction. So the entire creation not only will be saved, but that will begin the Messianic era. So it's not going to end, but the threat or the danger of it ending is unbelievable. And this is what's going to happen right before the Messiah, the Mashiach ben Yosef, comes. That's a very important idea. But the interesting thing that we have to ask ourselves is, what does that mean? What is the manifestation? What does the world look like when the world is about to end, or the evil? And that's what I want to talk about. And in many ways, we will understand that that is responsible for what has been happening to the world, what has been happening to America, and also, in a certain sense, what's happening to Israel, the nation of Israel. So the question is, what does it look like? And the answer to that is that, number one, as the window closes and the light, the divine energy is blocked, right? Evil proliferates enormously. That's the first thing. The second thing is not only does evil proliferate, but what really is bad is that the good, whatever's left, itself will become evil. That means nations that were previously okay, that they were good, they themselves will become evil. They will change. But in what way? Now, I once mentioned, which is important to know, there are two kinds of sins or evil that man can perpetrate. One is a sin, whether it be immorality, right, or crimes, all the bad things that we see, and so on, But there's a second type of evil, which is much worse. And what's interesting about that, which I will mention, is that God will not tolerate that second type of evil. You see, in other words, that's the limit. God will not allow that. What type of evil is that? Is with that the sins of mankind is of such a nature that it will destroy civilization. It will actually destroy the world. In other words, God wants the world not only to exist, but to sustain its existence. You see? So he will not allow nations of the world to initiate behavior which can destroy civilization. And there are a number of sins that can. You see? So when that happens, that is when even the good becomes evil. And the evil that they become will destroy civilization. Those are the types of sins. Then God will not allow that. And he will severely punish the nations that do that. In other words, sinning is one thing. Character in terms of character, crime, immorality, and so on. But there's certain types of sins that if it continues and is successful, right, then all of a sudden mankind won't survive, and God will not allow that. That's what's called the bottom line condition of existence. And that's called the window almost closed. That's what does it. When the world will have reached that level, you see. Now we have two interesting examples of that. And the result was that God destroyed. The first one, of course, is the flood of Noach, the Mabul, right? They destroyed. There were incredible criminals, like it says in the Torah, in Parshas Noach, the world was filled with chomos, which is an interesting play on Hamas or Hamas, whatever, where the world became unbelievably corrupt, criminal. You see, there was unbelievable theft. Now you cannot, there basically was no law. You can't have a society without law that we know. So what did God say? I'm sorry. I will not tolerate, right, the descent in such unbelievable abuse of the requirements of civilization. So God did something which is very hard to believe. He wiped out the planet, right? And it was miraculous when he wiped out the planet. And he didn't wipe it out with some comet, you see, because he wants the world to sustain itself. He wiped it out with a flood. But there's no such thing as water like that, drowning the whole world, where the waters went up to the top of the mountains, even beyond. So waters poured out from the heavens, poured out from the abyss of the earth and so on, and it killed all mankind. And of course, the animals were saved in the Noah's Ark and so on. So that's a complete turnaround of nature, obviously. Now that is very severe, obviously. You see, it's like the worst type of retribution you can do. Why did he do that? So it was not only criminal behavior that would destroy civilization, the immorality was also a criminal in the sense that you cannot have civilization. And I once mentioned what the Medrash says, that the reason why the decree of the Mabul, the flood, happened, what sealed the decree? Right? And it was what the decree was about, is that they're wiping out civilization. You see, but what sealed it? What sealed it was when a guy, if he would want to marry another man or an animal, that's what they did, bestiality, right? And they would have to write a ksuba, which is a marriage contract. Excuse me, that means you're legalizing and recognizing by the government this type of immorality. The world cannot survive with homosexuality or whatever perversions were going on. So he wiped out the planet. It's incredible. He did it again by Sodom, Sodom and Gomorrah, right? As they say in English and so on, you know, right? Why did he destroy them? Not only because they were sinning, they were incredibly crazy. You see, if somebody would steal, right, something from somebody else, then the one who would have to pay, the thief, is the victim. Because if you didn't have the money, he could not have stolen it. So it's the victim that's responsible for the theft. Now, you know, you think about that and say, what is this, Alice in Wonderland? I mean, what are they, crazy? So God said, this cannot be. This is not only a denial of the law or justice, this is a mockery of the law. This cannot stand. And if it spreads, the world cannot exist. You see. So he wiped out Sodom. And it was through angels they wiped out Sodom. So we see therefore that God has a bottom line. That's a very important idea. You see. And in many ways, that concept that if you engage in behavior which can destroy civilization, which is the continuity of mankind, you will be destroyed. Even though God doesn't do that generally. Even if you sin, okay, there's an accounting later on, but he won't wipe out the planet, you see, and so on. And by the way, that also happened in 2005. Katrina wiped out New Orleans. Why? In 2005, if I remember correctly. Why did that happen? You see, it went over the levees, let's say on Monday, right? And it flooded the entire city. It literally destroyed. That was a mini Mabul, right? A mini flood. Because God swore that he would never wipe out the planet, but he could wipe out cities, or he could wipe out countries with a flood. Same concept. Why did he do it? Because on Monday, the hurricane, if I remember correctly, hit, right? On Tuesday, it went over the levees of New Orleans. Why? So I was wondering, and then I was reading a newspaper, and it actually said something which fit perfectly. Because on Wednesday, New Orleans has what's called Southern Decadence Day, right? And they have it every year. What is that day? Where you can commit any sexual, immoral, homosexual, what do you name it, act publicly, and the cops will not stop you. You can do whatever you want. So it's not a Mardi Gras, but it's very similar in that everything goes. But it includes an unbelievable amount of what's called licentiousness, lewdness, and perversion. So God did what he said. I cannot allow this, where it's legally allowed to do this, right? You can't have a civilization with this legality of these perversions. And therefore he wiped out New Orleans. And that's frightening, you see. He did the exact same thing, just the numbers was different, that he did by the flood. And he wiped out New Orleans. That hurricane, Katrina, is not an accident. All of this is orchestrated by God, and we know that. So I'm giving you 3 examples at different times of history why God will do this, and that in the end of time, right, this is what it looks like when the window is about to close. Now, once we have that understanding, we can now understand what is going on. Now, I want to say something interesting, which there are people that I'm sure will disagree with me. Thomas Jefferson, one of the great founders of democracy in America, I mean, the man was obviously very great, brilliant thinker. You know, he wasn't perfect, nobody's perfect and so on, you know. But he wrote the Declaration of Independence. And as far as I'm concerned, he made a mistake. What is that? Now, that sounds like real chutzpah, right? But listen to what I have to say. And the mistake is, as you will see, and I think you will agree with me, he wrote, all men are created equal, which is true. They are, basically. I don't want to get into the Hashkafa of that. But basically, yes, okay. Although there's what to comment on that. But anyway, and they are endowed by their creator, which is great. He acknowledges a God, a creator, you see, right, with life, true, liberty, freedom. Freedom to do what? Freedom to basically do, right, and do what you want and not be interfered with. That's the concept of liberty. Don't bother me. I have a right to do what I want, obviously, as long as it's within the law and so on, but you cannot interfere. That's the concept of freedom, liberty, right? But he says liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Is he correct? No, he's wrong. What he should have just said is to pursue that which they would like to do, basically within the guidelines of the law and so on. What's wrong with happiness? Because even though it's an important feature of life, I'm not denying it, right? You have to be happy and so on, but that's not the reason for liberty. The reason for liberty, what he should have said, right, is that, you know, life, liberty, and the pursuit of meaning, right? Meaning, purpose. That's the obligation of man. Why do you think God gave mankind a superior brain? Why do you think he gave mankind a curiosity, you see, as to what life is about? We all have that curiosity, and we all have that drive. We're all searching every day. Why am I here? What's the meaning of it all? What's the purpose? Is it merely to go to work, procreate, right, and enjoy ourselves and have pleasure and whatever other kind of things, you know, make us feel happy and so on? Of course not. That's not why God created us. You see, if he did, then what do we need the Torah for? What do we need the laws for? You see, he created us because he wants us to search for meaning. You know, there's a guy, Viktor Frankl, who initiated an entire theory of personality. I forgot the pursuit of meaning or whatever, and so on. And he posits that meaning is the most important drive of man. Of course, you have to survive. Obviously, you have to eat, drink, whatever, you know, and therefore you need to go to work, make money, and so on. But that's not the reason for life. You see, of course, it's important because if you don't survive, then there is no meaning, you're finished. But the real purpose of life is meaning. And believe it or not, everything you do on a daily basis, you're always in the back of your mind, unconsciously, searching for purpose, searching for meaning in that purpose. See, that's the whole point. We're all trying to identify, why are we here? What is it? It's got to be more than just making a living, right? Or enjoying some of the, pleasures of life. It's got to be more than that. Because look at the faculties that we have. Why do we have such a superior brain? Of course there are people, well, it's evolution. It's nonsense. I don't want to get into evolution, but of course it's nonsense, We are what we are in order to be able to search for meaning. And ultimately, God knew that we would not be able to find, to a great extent. Why? Because we are so biased and we are so heavily in the pursuit of pleasure that we don't have time to go looking for meaning, even though it's unconsciously within us, right? So God knows that. That's why he revealed the meaning, and that is the Torah. The Torah tells us what is the meaning of life. And in a very short form, the meaning of life is this. 1, to be good, as defined by the Torah. 2, higher, to be righteous. And that's the 7 Noachide laws. 3, to be holy, which is greater than righteousness. That's number 3. And number 4, believe it or not, to live a life of divinity, to be divine. Right, man can become divine. Now, I'm not going to go into each one of these things, but that really is the meaning of life. You see, so Jefferson had it wrong. It's not happiness. I mean, I understand why he said that, but that's not what it is. You see, it's the pursuit of meaning. So he said, and he was right. We have life, right? They have been endowed by the Creator with life, liberty, and the pursuit of meaning, purpose, right? That was a mistake. Now, certainly one of the countries that have exemplified, the whole concept of being righteous, or certainly being good, and so on, and liberty is part of that gift and so on, is America. Right, America is one of the greatest countries on earth. When you take a look at ancient civilizations, I mean, that was the last thing that they gave you, until you had Greece with democracy, and so on, But most countries in the world, they enslaved you. It was all dictators, tyrants, right, kings, and they were all mad with power, and so on. It's like, what's his name, Lord Harrington, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's a famous statement, which of course is true, because that's what man's nature is power, because he needs security and he needs to reassert his own being, without getting into the meaning of that and so on, But the main idea is that most countries in the ancient world, right, you were nobody basically. You were a pawn of the state or the country and so on. So America is one of the first countries, you see, to envisage what? The concept of freedom, of equality, which is a tremendous gift to the world. Therefore, what God wants from America, right? From Jews, God wants holiness. That's what he wants. But from America and from the nations of the world, he wants righteousness. And that's the whole concept of the 7 Noachide laws, you see. So therefore, that's what basically God wants and so on, you see. And that's really what they're supposed to do. But what did America do? They don't do that. It's unbelievable that they did it very nicely for a certain amount of time. which is really great. Then in the last 20, 30 years, what's happened to this country? You see, America basically, what are they into? And and people view it as what? As some type of a freedom, but it's not. America has become very depraved, debased, you see, and corrupt. I mean, I can just go through, some of the ideas of what's happening today. We take a look at the crime. What is this? The crime is in every major city. You cannot have a country with all this crime. And the one responsible for the crime is not the criminals. It's the DAs, the district attorneys, because they don't enforce the law, the concept of bail and so on, that shoplifting. Well, in California, and I'm going to talk about her, Kamala Harris and so on, she's the one who I think she passed the law, tried to pass the law, whatever, that you can shoplift up to $950 in California. And nobody will do anything to you. So we're not here having criminals violate the law. We're having DAs, you see, they're violating law. So it's a mockery of justice. And it's not only that, they want to defund the police. What are they, retarded? The police is the only thing that stops criminals from getting you, from destroying you. And they want to defund the police. You see, this is all because of a distorted view of what a victim is. You see, in any case, and then not only that, but there's an unbelievable amount of prosecutorial overreach. We take a look at what's happening. We laugh, we can't believe, we stare in disbelief. For instance, the crimes that they said that Donald Trump committed. What are they, crazy? I don't want to go through the whole thing because we know the 4 indictments against them. This is what you're convicting or indicting a former president of the United States? What are you, crazy? And so on. This is called, I'm not even going to the politics, but this is prosecutorial overreach. And not only that, one of the things which is horrendous, every person is entitled to justice. I mean, that's part of the American constitutions. But then you take a look at justice. What justice? You see, they can convict you. What does that mean? If you get sued, you're doomed. Even if you're found innocent. Why? You can't afford a lawyer. Any suit in a court, unless it's small claims, right, you're finished. Because you can't afford $500, $600, $700, $800 for an hour for a lawyer. So you have to plea bargain. What kind of a justice is that? In other words, they made it impossible for justice to be actualized. Is this justice? Of course not. It's a stacked deck. So you have that in America, right? And then what do? They kill you. Abortion. Do you realize abortion is murder? Even if you want to argue, well, the first third of the term, fine. Not that I agree, God forbid, right? But you can hear an argument because the embryo is not even formed yet, and maybe you want to say legally it's not a person, whatever. But the law is, and Kamala Harris is completely, she's the abortion queen, right? You can kill an infant that's a full human being, that's going to be born in 10 minutes, right? You can kill him. That's murder, right? Do you know how many babies have been killed? And by the way, they're not just killed, they're mutilated. I forget exactly how, but I think the brain is pierced with some kind of a, needle, whatever. But without going into that, since 1973, when you had Roe versus Wade, because of that guy, that Supreme Court Justice, I think his name is Blackmun, whatever, and so on, and he's the one, I think, who actually did it. If I remember correctly, the statistic from 1973 until now, 66 million babies have been killed. You know what 66 million babies are? Guess what? All those babies, 66 million babies, and you will find that out someday, are up there in heaven, because they're all dead. and they're all pointing their finger at America and saying they are murderers. We don't realize what's going on, right? America is responsible for the murder of 66 million babies that never had a chance of life. You see, now if you don't want your baby, fine, then give it away. You know how many people are childless, that they have no kids, and they would love to have your baby, right? Okay, so you solved the problem. Why do you murder the baby? That's all it is. That's one of the greatest indictments against America. It's a murderous country. What do you think God is going to say with 66 million babies pointing their finger and accusing America of wanton, deliberate murder? You see. And then what do we have? Insanity. You have 11 million people coming into the border. Many of them are terrorists. They estimate 1 million people could be terrorists, right? Nobody's vetted. They're coming with diseases, right? How do you allow this? In other words, where's your responsibility to your citizens? You're not allowed to do this because you have political ambitions that you want them to fill out the population to be represented in Congress and so on. So you have a right to destroy your citizens? What kind of injustice is that? And I'm not even talking about the cartels. I'm not even talking about the fentanyl. You know, you got 130,000 adults, many of them are teenagers, that die from fentanyl. How do you do that? The first obligation of any politician that's in the government is to do what? Is to protect your citizens. They're dying left and right. Have any of you, I spoke to people whose kids died from fentanyl. Do you have any idea what it is to listen to a father or mother that is grieving over their child because of a overdose, or they took fentanyl which killed them and so on? And where did they come from? From Mexico, from China. In God's name, how does a president stand by and do nothing while 130,000 minimally kids or adults, whatever, die because you want to politically be in power? Are you crazy? You have any idea what that looks like in the eyes of God? Anyway, so you have that going on, right? And then what about all the human trafficking? We don't even know what's going on. The kidnapping and the trafficking, you see, and the sexual slavery and so on. Is this right? When you could stop it and so on? You see, I'm not even going into the migrant crime. People die from these migrants. I'm not saying everybody, right? But we all see what's going on and so on. And then you have states that are dying, right? New York City is dying. There's a mayor that doesn't know what he's doing, right? Could you imagine, I walk over to you, and this is the equivalent, right? I walk over to you, I put my hand in your pocket, and I take out your wallet. You see? And you look at me and you say, excuse me, what are you doing? Right? And you attempt to stop me. I say, excuse me, I want your money. Why? Because I want to donate to charity. You want to donate to charity? Maybe you write out your own check and you give to charity if that's what you want. Where do you come off taking my money to give to charity? It's unbelievable. You know, it used to be where people coming to the United States, they felt blessed and so on, which was great. But nobody gave them any money. Nobody paid for their hotels and their education and their hospital bills. You mean the best we can do for you is you have what's called the opportunity of a lifetime, because that's what America is, the land of opportunity. Now what do? They take them in, give my charity with my tax, with my money, all right? I mean, is this sane? Of course it's not sane. And he's doing it because of the goodness of his heart. Is he out of his mind, right? It's called theft. You think because he decided as the mayor that this is okay, or Kathy Hochul, or any of the sanctuary states, you think it makes it righteous and legal? Of course it's illegal. It's called legal theft. You see, like I say, you want to give charity, give it from your own money. How do you force taxpayers and take their money to pay for migrants? You see, I mean, it's insane. It's really what it is. And it's all the sanctuary cities, without giving the whole list and so on. But New York is classic, and New York is being destroyed minimally because people are leaving in droves and so on. But it's morally incomprehensible how this is happening. Imagine this is what America has become. It's a psychotic country. It's a wonder that there's still anybody left. You see, now you may say, wait a minute, this basically is the government. You know, why blame the people for these sins? All of which I've mentioned, and there's many more that who can go through the whole list. Why blame the government? And I want to tell you something. America is no longer America. It's no longer the United States. That's a fiction. It's called the divided states. Why? Because half America puts these people in power. Right? It's unbelievable to look, you know. Half these people want these people to be in power. You see, so therefore they are held accountable for the misery and for the pain and suffering that Americans are going through. Is this a country, right, that makes any sense? Why? Because half America wants entitlements. That's really what it's all about now. Half America doesn't want to work. They want entitlements. And the Democratic Party realizes that. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. Why do you think Biden is trying to hand out so much money? Because he realizes he wants to buy them all off, right? Student loans, because he wants all the youth to vote for him. What are you talking about? It's illegal. How many times has the Supreme Court had to slap him, you know, and say, excuse me, you can't do this? But every time he comes out again, because he knows he can never pass that law, right? But most people, they're so busy trying to make a living, they're so busy, you know, living and so on, right? They don't know that it's illegal what Biden is doing. You can't believe the lies, you see, the violations of what's going on with this government. We've never seen anything like it. You see, I hate to use the word, it's an orgy of power and dictatorship. That's really what it's become. I'm not even going in the fact that, you know, that it's communist, that the Democratic Party is communist, and this is the evil of Esav, right? You are now looking at the window about to close. So what's God going to do? You see, that's what's interesting about all of this. As I said, America has now violated its purpose, and that is to be a model of some sort of morality, ethics, you see, righteousness, which it used to be to a great extent. You know, America was always looked at as the great country, you know, of political righteousness and so on, you know. America has become the laughing stock. And they become the laughing stock of dictators, tyrants, you know, and so on. What they're doing is not just a sin. It is a violation of civilization, right? I'm not even going into the morality. I'm not even going into the LGBTQ, which is going to destroy America, right? That's what destroyed Greece. All a bunch of homosexuals and so on, right? I'm not even going into that. And then you have the transgender. They just passed a law in California, right? You can't believe that. That if your child, you cannot interfere if he wants to change his sex, his gender, right? Imagine he goes to school, right? And he's a boy, right? He decides he wants to be a girl. So what does he do? He takes off his pants, right? And he puts on a dress. Do you know that school is not allowed to call up the parents and say, by the way, your son is now wearing a dress? You see, so that maybe the parents can exercise parental discretion or parental control or whatever. It's illegal, which is unbelievable. They've taken away the rights of parents to raise their kids. On what? How can a kid make a decision to change his gender? What kind of nonsense is that? A 7-year-old kid can change, so you have that, and then you have the education. The whole college system is left, radical left. It's all communist. Why do you think we see anti-Semitism all over the place? And that's another thing, the unbelievable anti-Semitism. And what are they all saying there, right? The Jews, from the river to the sea, as what I will quote, Netanyahu, most of these people don't know which river and which sea. They don't even know what's going on. So how can they take a stance, right, against the Jewish people? They ought to thank God that there were Jews in America. You know how much American Jews have contributed to this society? Think about that. If you took away all the inventions and discoveries of Jews, America would probably be back in the cavemen. I don't even want to go into all the things in sports or in entertainment or science or chemistry. 1/3 of all Nobel laureates are Jews. So instead of thanking the Jews for what they did for American society, they hate the Jews. You see? You think God does not look at this? You see? Very, very important idea. So what we see now is America is on the way to destruction. They are destroying the ability of civilization, because the problem is this. America is not just a country. In many ways, it's the model for the entire world. A great deal of the world relies on America for security. They rely on America for, the path, what's the best way to live and so on, you see? So America has an unbelievable opportunity to promote righteousness, to promote religion and so on. And that's gone. You see, and I'll tell you something, which I just heard a statistic, right? That they took a statistic that the woman from single married women from the ages of 24 to 44, which is childbearing age, 47% of them said they don't want kids. No, you don't want kids. There you are. That's the beginning of the end, or what's called the replacement, and God wants replacement, right? He wants people to procreate. That's part of what the world is all about. So they're not even having half America almost of women of childbearing age don't want kids. You believe this? And so on. And who knows how many people don't want to get married. I don't know if you know it, but more than the majority of New York City is single. Is single. They're not even married. So you're looking at the end of replacement for America. Why? Because everybody wants to have the good life. They don't want to sacrifice, because who knows how much money to raise a kid, right? So they want to have a nice, pleasurable life filled with joy and happiness and all that. So why would anybody want to get married? Why would anybody want to have kids, right? They want to do what they want. This is what basically, and believe me, what I have said is nothing compared to what's really going out there. You see, America, that's half America. But the problem is, then why are they all guilty? You see, and we will see what that means. Because they keep voting these people in. That's why. So God says, listen, don't stand in front of me and say you don't agree with this philosophy or this political state. No, why are you voting these people in? You see, therefore you have contributed to a nation that is busy destroying itself, and it's a model to the world and to destroy the world. Right? That's what brings everybody into culpability. You see, so they can't claim. You see, what America really should do is throw out, right, the Democratic Party. You don't realize the evil of this party. Therefore, what is the conclusion of all this? Now that you understand, right? The conclusion is that there is a decree, a terrible decree, a gzera against America. Just like there was a decree against the world, the Mabel, just like there's a decree, right, against Sodom, and just like I mentioned, there's a decree with Katrina in New Orleans, right? You don't realize that. And you know where you see that? That there's a decree. The decree is that America must wither, right? How long do you think? It's only by God's grace that America is the most powerful nation, probably that ever was. The wealthiest nation, right? They are tremendously wealthy. They are blessed with resources. They are blessed with business know-how. You think this is an accident? Who do you think you are? You think all of this comes from your brilliance? It's all God. We know that. You see? So why are we tampering with this? Therefore, there's a decree with God. That's the decree. And I'll show you how we see this. That America must wither ultimately and become a third world. Right. Just like he's done to all the civilizations. Why do you think these civilizations are destroyed? Because ultimately speaking, they are involved in such evil that God says, I cannot allow. It's not only the retribution for sins. Many of the nations have engaged in sins that destroy civilizations. Right. And guess what? None of them are around. None of them. The only one around is Jews. Do you ever wonder why? Exactly. Because they're the only one who observes the Torah and will bring righteousness and holiness and divinity to the world. Right. Where do we see this? Really? There's a divine decree? Yes. You know where you see this? Because Trump was almost killed. Trump is basically, and remember, I'm not saying this because I'm for Trump, although I agree with his policies, no question. And he's the guy for the job. As I said many times, he's the Tev Sheba Esav. He's the good part of Esav that is doing tshuva, right. And he will, in many ways, confront the nations to begin the process of redemption. I've said this many, many times. You see. But wait a minute. Do you think that crazy guy, Shiur, could shoot a bullet at a former president? Not only that, at the only one who could save America, right, from that decree. You think he could shoot that bullet without permission of God? Of course not. The fact that he was able to shoot and the unbelievable incompetence of the Secret Service, which people cannot believe. I mean, you're looking at the Three Stooges. Remember the Three Stooges? Laurel and Hardy, Abbott and Costello? That's basically what the Secret Service was all about. And this is what America pays billions of dollars to protect? How do you think it happened? Now, I'm not going to the conspiracy theories, whatever. But minimally, it was unbelievable incompetence and ineptitude. That's staggering. They should get the Guinness World Prize for incompetence of a government agency. And the answer is because that's the Gzera. Because if Trump dies, it's not Trump that dies only. It's America that dies, because he's the only one that can restore. And I'll tell you something, Trump got it right. He prophesied, and he didn't even realize. Here's what Trump said. I should not, at the speech of the convention, Republican convention, I should not be here today. He's right. He shouldn't be here. Why? Because of the Gzera that God allowed the shooter to almost take him out. Right. It's a divine decree. So what did God do? He saved him. But this was not an ordinary rescue. This was a salvation of unbelievable, miraculous proportions. And I mentioned last time why. Because he wants to show people that there's a message behind this. But there's also that presents the good news. But where do you see that there's a Gzera? Let me tell you something. You think Obama, Biden, and Harris running can do anything without the decree of God? Of course not. This whole thing is such a short-sightedness. Obama began the decree, right? He was a terrible president. But what's interesting about Obama is God said no. And I once said the numerical value of Barack Obama, right, is Mashiach, right? I think it's 358. That's his numerical, which means very interesting, and it's also the numerical value of Nachash, of snake. Zelumazeh, one is opposed to the other. You see? So in many ways, God gave him this, said, listen, before you engage in your evil of Esav, I'm going to give you a chance to do good, to be part of the messianic process, to help America stay righteous, right? What does he do? goes to Egypt right after he becomes president, and he gives this ridiculous speech. Well, it's the Arabs, and they're the main thing, all right, which is terrible for the state of Israel, which is the ally. And I want to tell you something which most people are not aware of. Not only Biden, so what God continued is the destruction of Obama, which was very bad, to Biden. Biden is part of the Gzera, right, to destroy America. You think Biden can become president without the decree? Of course not. Biden's reason for being president is to wither, to destroy America. This is the decree against America. Don't you understand? This is what's happening. You see, and he did a fabulous job. Between the border, the crime, the inflation, everybody's suffering. For what? Because of his idiotic laws. He destroys the energy of America, and I mean everything he does turns to mud. You see, Biden is a continuation not of Obama, of the Gzera, and people don't understand that. Who's coming next? Harris. Okay, how do we get a handle on Harris? Let me tell you something that people do not realize about Harris. First of all, her name is Kamala. I don't know if you know it, but Kamala has the exact same letters in Hebrew as Amalek. Right. She's the third aspect, and she will finish off America. Right. And it's not only that, because Kamala, if you write it out in Hebrew, okay, spells Amalek. And Amalek is the end. You know, it's always, I find it very interesting, and I'll talk about what seems to be happening, but I don't believe it will happen in any case, and so on, you know. There were three bad people when Esav became evil, the Rasha Esav. There are three bad people. Each one was a continuity of the previous. First it was Esav, became a Rasha, became a tremendously evil person, and we know that. I've talked enough about Esav. But guess what? Esav had a son, Eliphaz. He's a continuity, and he wanted to kill Yaakov. When Yaakov was running away from his father Esav, right, because of the blessings and so on, Eliphaz caught up with him. He wanted to kill him to fulfill the wish of his father. So Yaakov, the Medrash says this. He said, listen, you want to fulfill the wish of your father by killing me. So here's what, let's make a deal. It says that a poor man is what? Is equivalent to a dead man. That's what it is. So therefore I will give you all my money, everything I have, and that will make me incredibly poor, and that will legally be that I'm dead, and therefore you will have fulfilled the wishes of your father. Could you imagine this? That Eliphaz wanted to kill Yaakov, and if not for Yaakov's argument, I don't know if he could have killed him, because Yaakov was very strong, and so on, but he certainly wanted to, right? So Eliphaz is a continuity of Esav. In fact, that's exactly what he did. Who came after Eliphaz? Who was a child of Eliphaz? Amalek. He's worse than Eliphaz, which is worse. I don't know if he's worse, but he's like Esav. Three people, right? Esav, Eliphaz, and Amalek. And Amalek is the worst. What do we have now? The Gzera, Obama, to try to destroy America. Then we have what? Biden. And Biden did it. I mean, America's a whole different country than it was then. Just take a look at the destruction. And one of the worst things is the debt. America now owes, or the debt is $35 trillion. Now, neither you nor I have any idea what a trillion. In fact, I'd like to tell you what it is. Okay? Just to have some kind of understanding. If I have $1 million in $100 bills, how high would the stack be? I will tell you. The stack would be 40 inches. That means if you take $100 bills and stack it 40 inches, that's $1 million. Okay. How high is the stack of $100 bills if it's not 1 billion, but 1 trillion? And the answer is, if I remember correctly, 674 miles. 40 inches, 674 miles. And America owes $35 trillion. That is unsustainable, which means that eventually America will lose its status as a reserve currency. And that is the end of America. It'll be like Germany after the war, where you needed, I think, 80,000 marks to buy a Mickey Mouse watch or whatever and so on. How can you sustain that? And Harris, what I understand, she wants to take more money, trillions of dollars, for her ridiculous policies. You see, this is what's happening and so on. We are looking at Xera against America, or else Trump could never have been shot at all. And not only that, we would never have had somebody like Obama or Biden, and now we are threatened with Kamala Harris. Now, what the Rebbe did to Harris is very interesting. All of a sudden, Netanyahu comes to give a speech to the Congress. Now, I don't know if you know it, but Harris is the president of the Senate. That is her constitutional role. As such, if he's going to address the Senate, and he's a major ally of America, don't you think she should be there? No. Where is she? So she goes to some sorority that took precedence over her being in the Senate, which is a constitutional role, especially for Israel, which is a major ally, right? Why did God do that? Because God said, listen, before, as part of the Xera, I want to give you a chance not to be the evil that you are. Because Harris, really, if you want to look at it psychologically, she is a narcissistic megalomaniac. That's really what she is psychologically. She loves herself. She's into power and glory. I mean, even if you look at her biography, you could see 92% of her staff of 3.5 years is gone because they can't even work with her. I don't want to go through all the statistics and so on, and how cruel she was and so on. You see, this is basically what she is. You see, so God said, I'm going to give you a chance to redeem yourself. In what way? Like I gave Obama. I'm going to send Netanyahu at that time that you are the candidate to do what? To attend and give honor to the Jewish people. You see? And that will give you a tremendous merit. Why? Because if you honor the Jewish people, then you have honored me. Because everybody identifies the Jews with the Bible and so on. So what does she do? Because she really hates the Jews. Even if she's married to a Jew, who's not much of a Jew anyway. But in any case, so what does she do? She smacks Netanyahu in the face by going against her own constitutional responsibilities. And she goes to some sorority. This is what took precedence. So this was a birur. God tested her, and he gave her the ability in some way to earn merit. And she blew it. She's an absolute fool. She has no idea what she just gave up, which is very good for America, because now that she blew it, she's going to lose, which I will talk about. But in any case, so this is what's happening, you see. And take a look, but the incredible thing about what's happening with the third party, Kamala Harris, is this. People do not realize this. What Kamala pulled off is a miracle. You don't realize that. Kamala is the only candidate, right, that is a candidate without one vote of the 14 million people in the primaries being cast for her. But that's incredible. That's impossible. You know, nobody ever cast a vote. Not only that, she was rejected when she was running against Biden. She couldn't even make it to Iowa. You see, because everybody knows that she's got lunatic policies. And she is a lunatic. You see, but how? How in the world do you become a candidate of a major political party, the Democratic Party, without any vote? This is anti-democratic. What do you call that? I will tell you. It's a nes nigla. You don't understand. She became the candidate for president of the Democratic Party, completely anti-democratic. How? Who can pull that off? Only God, right? Why? Because she's part of the Gzera to destroy America. Right. And the proof of that, we've all heard her talk. That's assuming she doesn't giggle all the time, right? We've all heard her talk. Did you ever hear her talk? She doesn't make any sense. And none of that, she's unbelievably superficial. And more important, she was a senator, she was a DA of San Francisco, and then the Attorney General of California. And she was known as a very cruel person, sending blacks to prison because of marijuana, which I think she herself smokes. You see, and she laughs through it. And not only that, she was a senator for 6 years. I'm not even going to go into why she was a senator, what her services that she rendered to people and so on. And she was a senator. She did nothing for 6 years. She doesn't have one achievement in 6 years. And in the 3.5 years, the only thing she was commissioned to do, which she denies, and she's trying to whitewash history with the media and so on, right, was that she was the immigration or migrant czar, right? The migrant czar and so on, which she didn't do anything. She went down to the border once and that was it. You see, even that she couldn't accomplish. She has done nothing in 3.5 years, basically. So in almost 1 decade of being in political office, a senator and a VP, and she wants to become president of the United States, the most difficult job and the most powerful person in the world, of the free world also. Is America serious? So what do they think about? You have an idea how crazy this is? Since when does skin color and gender have anything to do with competence? Nothing. If she was a tremendously accomplished person, I can hear it. But what does that have to do with skin color or gender? Nothing. So you want to make this woman, and not only that, she's incredibly left, liberal, radical left. She's recognized as the most liberal candidate for presidency in the history of this country. You have an idea what she wants to do? I don't want to go through the litany. She wants to take Medicaid and give it to the immigrants. I don't want to even go through that. She will destroy America. She's part of the Gzera, right? And people do not understand. She's part of a Gzera. She's a third party to the Gzera, third stage. That's why a miracle can happen that can put her into office, which is unheard of. And that's why half America or whatever can ignore the fact that she has done nothing. I tell you, it's hard to imagine this, what is happening, you see, in any case. However, so what will happen? Well, we have to hope that the Gzera is going to end. Right. And I want to tell you something. I believe it will. Why? And the answer to that is because really Trump, as part of the Gzera that America has to diminish, was saved by an open miracle. Not by where the Secret Service found the shooter, which they knew about an hour before or whatever. That's not why. He was saved by an open miracle. And that tells me that the Rebbe Shalom is going to have Rachmanis on America. Because America has done many great things, which is really amazing when you think about that. They have sponsored Torah. First of all, the Chesed. America is a very kind country. They're tremendously in humanitarian causes. They're the greatest contributors to foreign aid. This is America. But more important, they have allowed the Jewish people to learn the Torah, to practice their religion unfettered, unchained. Right. And that is an unbelievable schus. And I'll tell you something, if you want to know how close that is dear to God, I will tell you historically. Okay? Japan. Did you ever wonder how Japan, after the war, was rebuilt by America? Right? Of course they rebuilt it, whatever. But why? Okay, so they have their reckonings and so on, accountants. That's not why. Because Japan was destroyed. After Nagasaki and Hiroshima, forget about it. And they lost the war, and they were in many ways, Tokyo was bombed and so on, right? But Japan did something for which they had a claim on God. What was that? Because Japan, who was an ally of Hitler, Nazi Germany, right? They were wondering, why is Germany killing all the Jews? What is wrong? So they didn't know, since they're an ally of Germany, Hitler, do they have to do the same, kill the Jews? Because they were very cruel people at that time, right? The name of the city of China, which they, whatever. So they were wondering. So they called the Amshin of a Rebbe. I don't know if you know the story. They called the Amshin of a Rebbe, who's in Japan, because all the Jews had fled. The whole Mir Yeshiva, right? They all fled. And that's what resurrected Torah in America, in Eretz Israel. How many Gedolim, I think Rabbi Aaron Kotler, so many Gedolim, the Mir Yeshiva and so on, fled to Japan and also Shanghai in China. And they were able to continue the Torah, and then they left eventually for American Israel. So because of Japan, Torah flourished. Torah existed. Imagine if Hitler had killed all the Rosh Yeshivas and all the yeshivas in Europe. God forbid, that would be the end of Torah and Judaism. But Japan saved, because Japan was the head of China in those days, right? They were the head. So Japan has a claim, you see. So they called the Amshin of a Rebbe and they said, we noticed that Hitler is killing all the Jews. Why? And the Amshinova realized, wait a minute, on his answer lies the fate of the Jews in Japan and China, because they were all fleeing that way, taking the Siberian Expressway all the way to the end and living in China and Japan. So the Amshinova said, incredible, it must have been divine inspiration. He said, well, the reason why Hitler hates the Jews, right, is because we are Orientals. Wait a minute. The Japanese are also Orientals. You see. So the Japanese says, so why should we kill the Jews? Because they're Orientals? We're also Orientals. So we're not going to do what Hitler did. So that answer saved the Jewish people. Meanwhile, what they did is they aided and abetted the Jews to learn the Torah. They allowed Judaism to survive. So guess what? At the end of the war, the angel of Japan appears before the great tribunal and says, listen, Japan, even though they deserve to be destroyed, why? Because they killed who knows how many people, right? That crazy emperor, right? Hirohito, and so on. Where did he get a right to do this and so on? Right? And bombed America and Pearl Harbor, right? But wait a minute. They saved Judaism. They saved the Torah. Without Japan, there would be hardly any Torah today. So the Baruch Hashem said, you're right. And therefore, I will bestow upon you a divine gift. I will make you, Japan, without any natural resources. And Japan has none. I will make you the second greatest economy on earth. So all of a sudden, Japan grew to be the second greatest economy on earth because of the Schus HaTorah, the merit of allowing Torah to survive. Well, if Japan has that claim, and look what they did, that's why America. Because America is a land of democracy and they have allowed Torah to survive and flourish, right? Everybody who wants can learn Torah and so on. And not only that, America gives Jews money to survive, how many programs they have and so on. So they actually contribute to the growth of Torah and so on, right? How much more does America have to survive? So therefore, I believe the decree is averted that Kamala will lose, you see. And what demonstrates that is that Trump is now saved by an absolute miracle, you see, and he will win the election, right, and take over America and begin the process of redemption. Because of that, which is incredible, you see. And not only that, we realized that God wants to save He wants to bring the redemption. We're very close, you see, and there's a very well-known verse or pasuk in Nach where it says, "Berega kotna zavtich, berega kotna zavtich, in 1 second I will abandon you," which is the Golus. uberachmim gedolim, and an incredible mercy, akapseich, I will gather you. What does that mean? Means the Jews will be saved because of the tremendous mercy of God. That's why. So when you add the merits of America, which they have done, and the Rahmanas, the tremendous compassion that God has for the Jews, and He has tremendous compassion also for America in terms of what they've done, I clearly believe that Trump will win. Although, look how strong the Gzera is. Because America is about to, half America seems to be believed this idiotic idea that Kamala is, right, she's next to the greatest thing in sliced bread. It's unbelievable how you could fall for this nonsense, where she's done nothing for 10 years. She's absolutely incompetent. And anybody who's ever listened, and now she's, and you should know, in the media who are promoting her, they know this, you see, but they don't care. They actually are willing accomplices to the destruction of America. That is an unbelievable, untold lie. And Kamala is now trying to defend herself, right, by saying these lies. Yeah, she's ready for fracking and all that. It's all lies and so on. That's how strong the decree is, because that's how much America is involved in the destruction of civilization. So what we're seeing something now is absolutely incredible, you see, and so on. And I believe that's basically where we're at. And that explains what's happening. Obama, Biden, Harris, which miraculously is now the candidate. It makes no sense. And people don't even think about that. How did she become a candidate? It's impossible. Nobody in history ever became a candidate without a vote, because that's the Gzera. And we know only God's vote counts. Nobody else's counts. You see, and if He wants to make you president, guess what? You're president without any votes being cast. I mean, this is absolutely beyond belief, you see. And only God could save Trump, you see. And that's what's is going to happen. And we have to hope, that the Gzera of what America is doing to itself will end, you see. And they don't realize that they are in the crosshairs of God's judgment. You see. So I believe that in the end, everything will be great, and that Trump will win, and that will begin an incredible process, because Trump will change America for the good, you see, for the good, for the righteousness, and so on. And he will go against the enemies of the world. He will begin the turnaround, which is really, that is the job of the good part of Esav. That's what his job is, to assist the Jewish people. Remember, Rav Yavo Itzoya, the older will serve the younger. That's the last prophetic statement, you see. And how does he do that? By countering evil, right? And right now we are faced with an unbelievable possibility of the incredible diminishment of America. And he will assist the Mashiach ben Yosef and begin that messianic process. Thank you.